I would like to now introduce our next moderator for our next panel. Stephanie Ragan, who we've heard mentioned already from APSCA. She's the Director of Code and Compliance. But before joining APSCA, Stephanie had over 25 years of experience in regulatory compliance and ethics. She managed compliance and ethics in the global offshore petroleum EPCI sector and has worked in trade compliance, corporate compliance, ethics program development. She clearly has a very strong understanding and skill set in this area. I'd like to welcome her up here. She's going to introduce her panel. And while Stephanie comes up, we are going to screen that video.
Wow, what a great video. As Rochelle kindly introduced me, my name is Stephanie Ragan. I'm the Director of Code and Compliance. Greg, Tobias, could you come up on stage, please? I'd like to introduce these gentlemen to you, and also we have some remote panelists joining us today. Welcome to the Beyond Boundaries, Innovation and Building Auditor Capacity. Greg, thank you for joining us again on stage. I know that Ron already gave you a lovely introduction, but I do have to say that Greg, just as a reminder, everyone is President and CEO of Arch Advisors, and his impressive history of the last 28 years of auditing, over 2,300 audits in over 80 countries. And I chatted with Greg prior to joining APSCA, and he gave me the real down low on what to expect.
And you still came.
Yes, he did not say, you tried to scare me off, I think, but he did a great. He really let me know how important the profession is, how important the industry is, and motivated me a lot. So hopefully our ethics team will make you proud. And I'd also like to hear live, we also have Tobias Gopel, who's the founder of SAC Experts, and he's joining us from Germany. So thank you for making the long trip over. And Tobias has been working in social compliance since 2014. And I think your audits are over 1,400 in count and in over 10 countries. So thank you for being here today with us. Joining remotely, we have two panelists here. We have Ms. Arta Beikzadeh, and she's the founder of Sustainable Assurance Solutions. She's recently become director of Australia Assessment with LRQA. She's got such a diverse and rich history in social compliance auditing and helped over 500 companies throughout the years to just improve and standardize, professionalize a real echo of what the APSCA mission is. And then also joining remotely, we have Rajan Kamalanathan. And Rajan is VP of Sustainability and CSR at Bureau Veritas. He's here in the US, but he has a global work history that's really rich. And he's also been very implementing a lot of development and management and sustainable supply chain, global supply chain, social compliance program management, and he's also on our stakeholder advisory board and our executive board, very helpful. So just wanted to introduce everyone and welcome you today. We'll be doing a mix of taking audience questions as quickly as we can, so please be sure to log in on Slido and submit your questions. But first, I'd like to start the panel off with a question about building auditor capacity and asking, what are some of the biggest challenges in building capacity that you see in our profession and within your own organizations?
Yep. So what I think is what Greg recently said, our idea of working in the industry and leaving a little footstep in the world and making it better, it's super good and everybody likes it. But being absent from home, as you mentioned, 122 nights this night?
Yeah, tonight will be 122 nights for me. We talked at the break. So.
Last year I had 163 hotel stays. It was like 75 flights. 70,000 kilometers. So you have to find the people who really want to do this. Yeah? Training, it's on the one hand side and it's possible, but identifying those people who really want to jump into this business, that's a challenge, and that's the thing we have to work on. Everyone, every CB, the clients, everyone.
I mean, for me, I put the challenges in three categories. It's time, it's money, and then it's what we've talked about, which is retention. I'm going to assume that I didn't get invited back up here because I was kind of voluntold. Because I'm on the board, I think I'm up here because I still audit and I still train, and I'm still a practitioner, and I'm a CSCA. The time that it takes to train somebody, it's not new. It's not, oh, now there's a test, and so what's different? It's always taken time for the nuances. I mean, there's a percent that can be done in a classroom and on a video. So there's always training that's pretty basic schoolroom type training. But on the job, in the field, in the factory, that's really how you figure out how to do this job. And so that takes time and it takes money. And so before the ABSCA test, we would hire somebody, and this is how I was trained in '95, is my first day of work, I met a senior auditor at a factory in Los Angeles. And that's how I started. And I shadowed her, and she told me, this is how you do interviews. I watched her. She said, this is how you do payroll. And it evolves, right? You learn more skills, but it was time in the field. It was time observing how you do this, and then someone observing you doing it and giving you feedback. Well, in your interview, you did this, and in the closing meeting, you said that. And I don't know another way to do it. I don't have an innovation. So I'm sorry, Rana, if you shouldn't have invited me to this panel on innovation. Because to me, it's the basics. You have to get lied to 1,000 times to understand. I need to ask it in a different way. I need to look in a different place. So the time that it takes is months. The difference is now we have 3 tests. But that doesn't change the time, really. It just changes the metric. So we used to say to the senior auditors that were training new auditors, is Tobias ready? You've worked with him for the last few months. Is he ready? Yeah, he's ready. He's good. Or I need to work with him on this, and then he'll be ready. And now it's, well, how did test 1 go? How did test 2 go? How did test 3 go? That still takes months. I don't know of anybody, and I'd love to hear the fastest somebody got through the tests. that started with no experience. Because I think I'm at like 9 months on our team, somebody that was a fresher, right out of school, no experience, send them out for an audit, get them trained in the field, get them through 3 tests. For me, it's about 9 months. I'm sure it could be done faster. That's just where we're at right now. So time is a challenge. Time is money. And it's expensive to train people. My experience is you're paying them a salary, and you're putting them on an airplane and in a hotel and in a rental car and paying for per diem, and it's not all billable. So it's an investment. But it always was. So for me, it's not an ABSCA thing. Like, it always took time to train people to fly the plane. And until they were ready to fly the plane, you didn't let them fly the plane. And so time and money is the biggest challenge. But then what we've all talked about is the retention. At the break, we were talking about the time, a full-time auditor is gone a lot. I still audit because I love it. It's much more fun than being up here. But the challenge is the factories, the fields, the farms are not in your backyard. They're not in your hometown. So you travel. And so as a non-auditor that still audits, I did 30 audits this year. That was the equivalent of 55 audit days. For me, it was 5 countries and 12 US states. You add the travel time to those 55 audit days, and I'm at 122 days that I haven't been home. 100 of those were audit related. You take a full-time auditor, how many days for a full-time auditor? 200, 195?
Yeah, 195, 190. Yeah.
So that's the retention problem that we have. So that's the challenge, is you've spent this time and treasure, you've invested, you've trained them, will they stay? And so that goes back to the career path we talked about, and there are career paths. There's different opportunities for an auditor, things that they can do, but that's the challenge for me, is the time, the money, and the retention.
Thanks. Arta, Rajan, do either of you want to chime in on some challenges? Arta?
Yeah, it's actually a good point. I can hear my voice.
We can hear you just fine.
Okay, so just give me 1 sec. It's a bit, need to probably change the volume. So if I wanted to just wrapping up what Greg and Tobias already said, there are a couple of challenges, which is including auditor resource, frequent movement, supply chain demand, that's basically one of the challenge, unwillingness in spending, investing time to stay in industry, which Greg already explained, and we all agree. Another challenge is unwilling to work as full-time in a specific firms, lack of recognition, weak professional image for auditor, which sometimes we get some feedback in terms of, recognizing this as a professional job. And sometimes the other challenge, which basically there are a huge variety difference at rules from different clients program. So I just try to categorize. I know that there are many questions we need to cover, but then I'll pass it to Rajan if you wanted to add more.
Sure, I think I'd agree with what has been said so far. Retention is definitely a challenge, and so we've been thinking out of the box to see how we can provide incentives for auditors to stay within the firm and not move out. And there seems to be a lot of challenges around poaching from other service providers as well, which is really not fun, because now you create this capacity challenges within a region or a country, and now you're going to find ways to then address the client's needs. And also, at the present moment, we do have a capacity challenge in some of the countries, and then when you're training up new auditors and trying to get them to a level where you can get them to the ABSCA exams, there's no mentoring that's available from senior auditors or lack of. So it takes a much longer time to get them through the whole process. So also training fatigue. Many service providers share auditors and with all of these service providers requiring their own separate training needs, it also creates a challenge for the auditors. And so that's something that we need to address as we move forward in terms of how do we figure a way out of this excessive requirements on auditors on training from different people and different schemes. I'll leave it at that.
Not sure. Okay, we're back on. Thank you so much. I think that the point you made about training is really important, and I think that's something that's common thread. So how can organizations promote a culture of continuous learning and professional development with auditors? I know that many of you have your own programs, and Tobias, I think we've looked at Zero to Hero, your program that you promote, and then Hero to Superhero. So would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So we sat together in the beginning of this year and said, okay, there will be a lack of capacity, yeah, even in Germany and Europe, and what to do. So we have been looking for a solution, and we thought, okay, let's build a training, but not only a classroom training. Let's try to get into the company, into the factory on the last day and do a mock tour, do some interviews, do an opening meeting, making it more interactive. And we had our first attempt this August. I think we have been 10 people which were not social auditors before, but associated with quality audits or health and safety stuff like that, yeah. And they really, really liked it. And yeah, we are now trying to get them into the market. Yeah, try to give them some co-audits, yeah, with the different audit firms, yeah, to get them recognized with APSCA and helping to get through the process and help our clients, our service provider, or the CBs by the end, to get new capacities and to improve the audit quality at least. Yeah. And once from Zero to Hero works, we will start from hero to superhero, yeah, for the next step, yeah. And yeah, we are looking forward to this journey, and yeah, that's the thing.
Wonderful. Does anyone else have any special training programs or incentives for auditors to participate in additional training within your organizations?
Yes, we have. So yeah, it's actually interesting. When we heard about APSCO and the techniques that auditors need to have, especially this CSR, social compliance or ethical sourcing, auditors needs to have particular techniques. At that time, we developed and designed the 2 days training course, which we deliver virtually or in the classroom, which is focusing on some of the techniques like triangulation techniques and also some of the approach that auditors needs to have, or especially in terms of interview skills, which is big part of this audit. So I believe that the auditor, this was actually one of the way that is designed was fit for purpose, and it's motivate auditors who are already even CSCA to improve the quality of audits, or also for the new auditors who wants to understand and educate in terms of how this audit needs to be done and what are the difference between this audit with other program. We try to basically cover during this training session. Also, besides, we try to arrange some calibration session for our auditor, because I believe this is just the start point. Especially in Australia and some countries, regulation change every year, and we want to make sure that everyone's understanding what are the new changes, and this is basically covered as part of calibration session that we cover for our auditors, which we found it very interesting because this gives an opportunity to auditors to share some stories, some challenges they're facing, and as part of this session, they share with other auditors, which basically it's good to know, and also we try to any changes, anything in terms of regulation, we share with our auditors.
That's great. We've had some online questions about how to address changes in regulation and local laws. So that sounds like a really great methodology for handling that. We're also getting some online questions about HRDD and about how auditor capacity or limitations in available auditors is driving more direction toward HRDD, especially in the EU. Would anyone like to address that related to auditor capacity, if there are any solutions on the horizon?
I mean, I see it as just the same capacity problem, whether it's driven by HRDD or just more clients looking at more things. Just the demand. We don't have enough auditors. It's a sample supply and demand Econ 101, and that's why everybody's hiring and that's why everybody's training. But you know, if it's driven by HRDD, it's still the same problem.
Okay.
If I was to jump in and say, you know, there is definitely a capacity challenge at present, but as soon as the EBSCO Part 3 exam is done by all of the existing auditors that are ASCAs and qualify, we're not going to get past that initial challenge you're talking about of capacity. So some of the things that Arta talked about is important to actually make sure that the auditors are grounded. A lot of the auditors have a lot of experience. I've got a mental block today, and they're not thinking through the exams, not organizing themselves for the exams, not practicing, not reading the EBSCO requirements ahead of time, and just because they think they're experienced. But there needs to be a mindset shift to basically say this is different. I need to study. I need to focus my mind and my attention, and so we are spending a lot of time actually trying to reset the mindset of the auditors who have struggled to pass the Part 3 exam in a Part 1. They've done it once, twice, and now a third time, and we are hoping by the reset that we are doing, we can try to get the auditors through until we get this capacity back up again. HRDD and all those will be a challenge for us to meet.
Okay. So regarding the passing exams and kind of looking at auditor capacity and some of the discussions we had in an earlier panel, if we're looking at overall audit quality, have you seen improvements recently, and how is that changing? I know we're still looking for bringing in more people to the industry, but how do you address the quality issue?
Quality is always a challenge as well. Not only finding the people. For me, this complete upskill journey is always a foundation. Yeah, if they pass and become CSCA, that's good. But then the work starts and the journey starts. Yeah, seeing the people in the field work, analyzing, helping, advising, giving trainings on special parts. This will be the challenge for all of us. But as a foundation, as a seal of quality, as a CSCA is super good, and then we can start with the journey individually for everyone what is needed. Some are super good already, but not all.
Great. Any other thoughts on quality?
Can I share our experience, Stephanie, that in Australasia, that's basically compared with a couple of years ago. What I believe that what we've done here is we're working as a team, audit firm, also retailers and auditors. I believe we work as a team. Even retailers support us in terms of funding and supporting audit firm in terms of improving the quality of audits. And if we compare with a couple of years ago, everyone was just not happy in terms of quality of audit report or also audit execution. But now what we have done is we've worked, especially in Australasia, most auditors, they are subcontractors. So what we've done is we basically train the majority or the huge number of auditors in terms of training. And now when I talk with the clients, everyone agrees that having training, have a regular discussion and have a calibration session or this communication, which is not possible without support of retailers and audit firm and auditors wasn't impossible, but everyone happy that I can see that we've done a big improvement in terms of audit execution and auditor quality of report, which is I believe that APSCA had a very critical position in terms of pushing auditors and audit firm in terms of going through this exam process and in order to improve the quality of audit as well.
Do you think that there's a difference in how you work with Subcontractors, since you brought up subcontractors, Arta, and this is for everyone to chime in on, do you feel like retaining freelancers and subcontractors is a specific challenge and that you have to take different methodology into account when trying to look toward retention compared to full-time employees?
I don't see this challenge specifically for us, because I believe that it's at the end of the day, auditors wants to work with a company or audit firm that supports them more, treat them well, and that's the way that you can retain the resource. So we're talking about some motivation that we already shared in the last panel discussions. I don't want to go through that, but I personally, I didn't see any challenge because, for example, my experience with our organization is 100% or just we had only one full-time auditor. The rest of our auditors, they were all subcontractors. And in terms of, what we have done is we try to change the mindset in terms of, saying that we only can, successful if we have full-time auditors and we only need to train our full-time auditors. We try to change the mindset and just say everyone gets benefit in terms of if we're improving, supporting auditors and delivering training and improve the quality, then everyone get the benefits. Retailers get a benefit from, having a high quality audit. Audit firms, basically are more successful and auditors that will be happy as well. So personally, I didn't see any challenge in terms of working with subcontractors. And I believe that this is really depends on, how you are supporting your team.
Good points.
I appreciate Arta's having problems. Good for her. I have a lot of problems with subcontractors. Freelancers have always been part of the industry, but they were a much smaller part before COVID. So we've had a shift, and part of it is the supply and demand that we've talked about. And so you might have somebody in a country where there's not that many audits. And so in the past, that auditor would work for a few different firms, and there wasn't enough full-time work for any one firm to hire a full-time auditor. And then when COVID came, and many of the firms, so I'm not speaking for everyone, but many of the firms simply couldn't cross borders. You couldn't get there. And so I'll use our small C-member firm as an example. We were able to do our European work with about 22 auditors at the end of 2019. We had to triple that number to 70 plus during COVID to get the same volume of work done because we couldn't cross borders. And so that was freelancers, right? And what happened is they could leave a company now. Now there's demand, right? They don't want to travel or they can't travel. So now instead of working just for one company, they can hang out a shingle and say, I can work for 5 companies and work 3 weeks a month instead of 4 weeks a month. And so freelancers are a new reality, and it's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just the new reality. Rana, you can help me if I have the number wrong. 20% of the CSCAs are connected with more than one firm. So they're freelancers. They're not full-time with any one firm. That's about 400 auditors, about 20% are CSCAs. And so I like what Arta said. I agree with what she said. But for me, it is a challenge when I say, hey, there's an audit in Fargo, North Dakota in January. Can you go? And the freelancer says, yeah, no, it's too cold. I'm not going to go because I'm a freelancer, right? You're not my boss. And so, it's easier to work with a full-time auditor that's your employee. We can't get our work done without the freelancers. So it's not a criticism of the freelancers. It's what I said in the last session. Auditors have power. If you're a CSCA, you've got some leverage you didn't used to have. Because if I could say, go to Fargo in January, I'd like you to go. And now that you can tell me, no, I still have a capacity problem, so where will you go in January, right? How much time will you give me this month or next month? And so, I agree with Arta's comments. We don't say it's your problem as a freelancer to get your CPDs. Hey, we need you to keep your credential. We need you to be a CSCA. So if we can help you with more training, we'll give you more training. If you need the labor laws, we'll give you the labor laws because we need you to do the consistent work that the employees are doing. And so I think freelancers are super important. I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. Technology has changed our industry. The ability to just be your own boss and do that, it's not going to change anytime soon. And since we have a capacity problem, we will work under the terms that we must agree to, legally, ethically, profitably.
Do you think that there's the capacity toward bringing in more work-life balance to auditors makes a huge difference? I mean, obviously, 122 travel days. You have people on the road all the time. What type of thoughts do you have around the building that work-life balance and looking to provide that to auditors?
Rajan, you want to go first? I don't want to monopolize the session.
Sure. I think trying to get to that point is going to be critical, because if you want to retain your auditors, whether it may be freelancers or your own employees, work-life balance is important. And at this moment, I would say, because of the capacity issues, it's a challenge. And we are working as hard as we can to get people through the exam, so we can actually start to give some semblance of a good working life and work-life balance. And so it is a challenge that we must openly admit to and say it's something that we need to get to in a hurry.
Yeah, I mean, employer of choice. If you want them to work for you, then you have to meet them in the middle. If they're willing to work for you and you say, fly on Sunday and fly home on Saturday, then good for you. But if they say, I want the weekend at home, I want to fly on Monday and I want to fly home on Friday, then if you want their capacity, you have to agree to that. And so every country is different, and every company handles it differently, and every person has a different definition of work-life balance. I know people that always question me being on the road so much, and my wife hasn't divorced me yet. So it's one size doesn't fit all. You can't say this is what work-life balance looks like. I had an auditor. She's a great auditor, and after 4 years, she had audited in all 50 U.S. states, not visited, but audited in all 50 U.S. states. And then she wanted to start her family, and now she has 2 kids, and we had to find a job for her, right? Career path. So we didn't lose that expertise, right? At some point, maybe we can figure out daycare and she can go back to work, right? Outside of the office. But that's the reality is the work-life balance is whatever you need to work out with that individual to maintain their capacity. And it's different for everybody.
Great. Well, when you're looking to bring in new auditors, what are the most important skill sets? We're getting a lot of great questions online. So I think auditors that are out there that are looking to, or people that are considering looking for some guidelines here. Is there a skill set or background that you find really prepares the auditors better? Or what brings in a good auditor?
What brings in a good auditor? A good question. Yeah. So this is as well a journey. To say, for me, it's always important that at least a little bit of HR background should be there. Yeah, a little bit of interest in human rights and what is right and wrong in the world, what happens, and seeing what about health and safety. So it's a mixture. It's a big story to tell from different sides. How to become a good auditor, and this takes time. Even if I'm doing auditing since let's say 10 years aroundish, I don't say I'm a good auditor, because I'm learning every time, seeing the different factories, different people, and different countries, different laws, and having different co-auditors with me, and seeing, okay, that's cool. Now, next time I will ask this question as well, because I never thought about it. So it's a learning experience, a learning journey, but you have to bring something with you. You have to be open-minded. You shouldn't be the policeman, because what my auditees always say, they don't like the policeman coming, oh, this is wrong, this is a non-conformity. Yeah, do it together, yeah, and to understand and to help them. Okay, you see this exit, it's blocked, yeah, I see it as well. Okay, so we write it down, yeah, everything is on this, or everyone is on the same page. So you have to be open-minded and interested in what you do. Yeah, that's important for me. And the rest, yeah, as Greg said and the others said already, it's a journey of 9 months, 10 months, a year to train the people in certain parts to become a good or an auditor at least.
Mm-hmm. Arta, Rajan, do you have any thoughts on skill sets that are helpful?
So I believe myself, as an auditor, you need to have a personality. You need to love human being, because what we do is around human, right? So, and I believe that Tobias said, we are not policemen. We're just here to support, to find some of the issues, and helping the company in order to rectify issue, and helping workers. So the techniques that auditors needs to know, for example, having a holistical approach or triangulation techniques. These are the things that when we train auditors or person who is interested to become an auditor, by the time that they doing some audit or experience, they can gain this experience. So this is not something that we just say one person, after having training and one audit is a best auditor. This is a bit different from other audit program. Of course, you need to have a knowledge of local laws. Of course, you need to have a kind of education in terms of what is ILO, International Labor Organization. You need to take some time, you need to educate yourself, and if you are interested in this topic, the other techniques you can just, we can train you, we can bring you on board, and you can gain the experience that you need. And I don't think that I don't see that is hard. It just needs to have a kind of personality that you are ready, as Greg said, everyone said, you need to travel, you need to be a bit more flexible, and then you can become a great auditor.
The only thing to add,
Isn't that great that she's so optimistic? I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
We're getting a lot of
the only
people
thing I was
online
going to
too
add,
saying soft skills and personality. Go ahead, Rajan. I'm sorry.
Yes. No, I was going to say exactly that. Soft skills are very, very important. You're talking to different people at, from a owner of the factory to the workers. You need to be able to know how to, communicate with all the different levels of people, and make sure you get your point of view across, and be able to then have a good closing meeting to wrap things up, and so everyone's clear, and you're not put off by a strong character in the factory who's challenging you back. So those are the soft skills that you need to learn as you go along.
We can train on most of the skills to be an auditor. I can't train you to be honest and ethical. You need to bring that. I can't train you on how to have thick skin. You either need to develop that or bring that. But I agree with everybody's comments on, it's helpful, but background, we've hired, business degrees and science degrees, but there's a lot of communication, written and verbal. And so, we've had people with anthropology degrees and English degrees and, language arts, a BA instead of a BS, because of the amount of reading and writing, and it's usually done in the local language and then the reports in English. And so those language skills are important, but the soft skills that everyone's talking about, sometimes you can train on that. It's great if you have that, like Arta, right? She's a happy person. She can go in and do that opening meeting, make them feel comfortable. I think that optimism is great. Mm-hmm. Those aren't my opening meetings, right?
I wouldn't expect that. So let's change gears just a little bit. We're getting a lot of interest online about how to prevent scope creep. So auditors can't be 100% experts in labor, H&S, biodiversity, GHG, emissions, ergonomics. How do you manage scope creep? And I'd like to give maybe Rajan, if you'd like to start us off with anything about scope creep.
Well, there's always scope creep that goes on because you're always trying to look for new ways of expanding your programs that you're working on. So a lot of my social auditors currently can also do other things around sustainability because there's a need, from our clients to actually expand into those spaces. So that means you've got to increase your auditor capacity, and so we have over time. We've recruited more and more team members in areas where there's a need for them to do more work. So if there's work, we recruit and bring the right number of people into the organization to be able to do it. But the scope creep does occur. Sometimes we have the social auditors doing all kinds of different things that not what they were initially trained for. But it's also as a way of them actually getting into new spaces that they weren't thinking of before. Maybe that's another way of getting them more excited about the job that they're doing. So scope creep occurs, but it's really, in a way, you can see it as a good thing as well, if you manage it right.
Anybody else want to talk about scope creep? All right. Well, another area of concern that seems to be flagged online is about freelancing again. So freelance auditors are concerned about being paid on time, to be able to get salary. There's some remediation around that, trying to help right now. We do hear some ethics cases about that or complaints that come in about that. And I just wondered if you had any thoughts to help point firms to how to ensure pay is fair, since that seems to be an auditor issue that's of concern.
Yeah, payment for freelancers. Yeah, it's a story, but so what I recognize is if you do your work correctly, so you have a contract with your client, and payment is it's negotiated in advance. So 30 days is 30 days. Could be 31, could be 29. But so I'm not facing this kind of trouble in the field of operations where we work. So, but I heard about it, and that's not good, because that is something what we are looking inside the facilities, that workers are paid on time. And if we say freelancers are our workers as well, they should be paid on time as well, and there should be no discussion in advance afterwards. Yeah, so everything negotiated in advance, and then follow the deal. That should be the way. Probably it's not always.
Right. But best practice.
Yeah.
So do you think that there's any way to build auditor capacity by preparing people going into the audit, by having some type of pre-reading, company assessment, pre-evaluation of supplier ethical risk? How could you prepare prior to auditors going in and conducting audits?
So that's not auditor capacity, right? Our auditor capacity is we don't have enough auditors for all the work that there is to do. Mm-hmm. To prepare an auditor to go into to do an audit, yeah, it's great. Any information that we can have before we go in is helpful, whether you'd search online and do a background check on that business, or whether the client has done a pre-questionnaire, a pre-audit survey, you've done a worker survey. So any information you have before you go in lets you target your questions. It gives you, as Rochelle said, a line of query to follow. So it's helpful. I mean, sometimes I'll just do a Google search before I go in and find out that there was an accident at the facility, and I can ask them if they've had any accidents, and they can lie to my face, and I'll pull out the article and say, see, somebody died here last year, and you forgot to mention that. So it's always helpful to have the information, but that's not an auditor capacity.
It's just more due diligence.
It's preparation. The more information that any auditor or any person has going into that situation, the better off it is.
Great. Thank you for addressing that for our online. Yes.
One point, Stephanie. So as we discussed before, we have some clients that the quality of audit is important, and it's always better if the auditor is prepared, do some, study. Like, for example, if there is any self-assessment questionnaire, auditors takes time before the audit, provide audit plan, make sure that ready for audit. However, these are all costs for us, which we have clients that they're happy to pay extra in terms of, because we have to, especially if we use freelancer, we have to pay for your time. So we cannot expect him to say, For example, you have to take, let's say, 2 hours extra time to be prepared, and then this is basically, I believe that we have to pay and compensate our auditors. So we have clients, which is basically we have agreement. We want to make sure we deliver high quality, and as part of that, we consider audit preparation and report writing, which basically we consider and we pay to our auditors. And based on that, we got a very positive feedback because auditor always ready. They just if there are some documents, they review before going on site. They do some study in terms of what's the facility, and this is impact in the quality of audit as well.
With current auditors not willing to become full-time employees, they want to stay freelance maybe for flexibility and issues that we've already discussed. How can you entice them to come in when they know the training to become a full-time employee is sometimes 1 to 2 years to really become fully onboarded and invested in the company, at least from the online perspective? Maybe it's not quite that long, but do you have any thoughts on how to increase full-time auditor capacity around that type of comparison to freelance?
I don't understand the question. If they're a CSCA, they've chosen to be freelance because any of the firms would hire them as a CSCA as a full-time employee. So they've chosen that. If they're a freelance but they're not yet a CSCA, yeah, we can give them training if we think that they can meet the CSCA requirements and help them become a full-time employee.
I think that the question is just around the length of time that it takes to be vested in the company.
I mean, that's what we have to do. We hire people. We can only train so many at a time because it's a burden. I don't have enough auditors that can be trainers to train the capacity that we are missing. And so as soon as somebody passes the test, we hire somebody else to start training. We all get, all the firms, I'm speaking for everyone as my guess, get regular emails from people saying, hey, I want to work for you, and I'm not a CSCA. Will you train me? And the answer is maybe, because it's a time and it's a money investment. And so if we think that you can make it through and you're a fit for us and we're a fit for you, then yes, absolutely, the investment will be there. But everybody gets a lot of requests from people that aren't going to end up in this business because they're not going to be the right fit.
Okay. So, again, another online question with a lot of interest, as this switch to a more holistic approach happens toward bringing in a lot of I think this is related to the holistic approach toward having a wide variety of experience or diversity in knowing what your social compliance, all of the other aspects of auditing as well. Is there a risk potential auditors could go into consulting or advisory work as they're growing in your company, and how is that going to impact the profession? Maybe you'd like to go, Tobias?
Yeah, so consulting is always a challenge, yeah, for auditors, for audit firms, because it's the low-hanging fruits from time to time. Yeah, it's for freelancers, it's easy money. You can do it. Yeah, you don't tell anyone. But by the end, we are all signing a code of conduct. We are all agreeing on the framework. We shouldn't do that. Yeah, and I can only advise everyone to pick their own nose and don't do it. And low-hanging fruits, yeah, nice, but we are auditors and not consultants.
Arta, Rajan, do you have any thoughts around losing auditors to consultancy work?
I can just say, Greg already mentioned not just losing to consultancy, because some of the auditors, they're going to work with retailers after, become experienced. So this is always, it's kind of challenge that after you train auditors, maybe they just are interested. I had actually one of my staff that after training for some time, she's working at one of the retailers, for example. So this is something that is not unpredictable, and we and I think that's kind of, challenge that we all have. It could be possible after, training someone, become an auditor, become CSCA, then they decide to become consultant.
But you should make your decision, playing on the one hand side or the other side. Yeah? Both pages cannot be played on the same time.
Right.
No, not at the same time, Tobias. What I'm saying
Yep.
that some of the auditor, after become CSCA, they decide not to continue as an auditor and they just move into consultancy, for example. Yeah, of course, that's a conflict of interest. I don't think that everyone, I think they know that they cannot work at the same time.
So let's look at how maybe collaborative programs might affect our capacity for auditors. What role do the initiatives like SEDEX and RBA have in contributing to field training? And should firm take full cost, especially given auditor independence in the program?
To jump in there first, I think there is a need for collaboration between the different schemes and try to figure out what is the basic training that's needed for them all. And then one of the things we have decided to do and are working on it now is to make sure when it comes to CPDs, for example, it's not everyone's trying to do everything and there's just not enough time, and it frustrates the auditors and it frustrates all of us as well. So the key thing here is we need to also try to figure out what are the key needs that from a coordinator to a scheduler to a report reviewer to the auditor himself, and the operations team, what are the key training issues that they're seeing, based on day-to-day operations, and then build CPDs around that too. So in addition to the basics that's needed, but I think we need to all agree what are the basic training that's needed to be provided to auditors from a CPD perspective, and not overburden the auditors by giving more and more and more to do, which there's not enough time to cover everything.
Any other thoughts on how to engage with collaborative programs?
I've heard, I haven't taken the SEDEX training for auditors, but I've heard that it's really good and that auditors that were struggling passing the test would go through the modules for SMETA, for SEDEX, and it helped them. And so to me, that's a positive place for the collaboratives or any client that wants something done specific to their program. It can help an auditor understand better what the client's looking for, what the deliverable would be. And so by going through that training, it can help you pass the test.
Do you think it's specific to that particular scheme to make it easier to conduct those audits as well? Or in general, it gives you a lot of good information to be able to apply toward auditing?
I've heard that the SMETA is helpful for somebody that hasn't done them to pass the ABSCA test, but I don't know specifically. I haven't taken it. I don't have the patience for an 89-page report. So,
can I just add a comment?
Yes.
Stephanie. So it's actually quite good because I was participated for this collaborative training, and what I think is fascinating is the new approach is basically educate or makes auditors familiar with the concept of management system, which is actually it's helpful for auditors, because if this audit is a bit different, for example, we have some auditors who they have a background of management system, which is easy for them, which is we have some auditors who doesn't have this background. The concept is basically a management system approach, which is helping auditors, and there are 4 criteria. And if, for example, the facility has some weakness or a strength in terms of some area, it's helping auditor in order to help them to find issues at workplace. So overall speaking, I think generally speaking, that's a really good approach, and I think that's definitely helping auditors in terms of their techniques and improving their quality of audit as well.
Thank you. Well, I know that we're getting close to time and we're also coming close to lunch, so I'd like to give you all a chance to answer a closing question and have a couple minutes to give your best advice for organizations that are looking to embark on their journey toward building auditor capacity? Any innovation that you have toward those thoughts, that would be great. And maybe we can start with Rajan and finish with Greg. We'll just come across the stage.
Okay, so I think the best way to approach this is to do Pathway 4, and it's really working for us. We have got a number of auditors in China and other countries in Asia too, who are and also in Americas and EMEA going through Pathway 4, and they're finding it really easier to go through and be trained and then sit the APSCA exams and get through it much faster than those that are experienced. So I think Pathway 4 is something that I think we need to consider as the way forward to speed up the capacity building that's needed.
Arta, would you like to comment on advice for organizations looking to embark on starting building their capacity programs? I think we may have lost Arta, so we're going to move to Tobias. If you'd like, she can chime in a moment.
Yeah, so as mentioned before, we have to have a close look on the people getting into the market and accompanying them during their journey to become auditors. Yeah, Pathway 4 is the correct way, I guess. And yeah, looking forward to prepare people and select and give advice and yeah, being like a mentor, yeah, in our field of interest, in our field of business.
Arta, would you like
Sorry.
to? Oh, you're back.
Sure. Sorry,
Yay.
I lost you for a second. Okay, good. I'm back. So, actually, Rachel shared a great story. We know that there are some issues. We know that, we need to build the capacity, and that's something that we need to work together. This is a journey, obviously, and I think we need to work. It's not just audit firm, it's not just auditors. We need to work together, retailers, audit firm, and auditors. We are the same team. We need to work together in order to building capacity, in order to improve the quality of audit, and making sure we have a good work for everyone. So I believe that change is inevitable. And as Rona already mentioned, love moving pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once a while, you could miss it. So that's what I wanted to share. And thank you for this opportunity as well.
Thank you. Bring us home, Greg.
Organizations embarking on the journey, my guess is everybody's on the journey trying to add capacity, so you've already embarked on it. One size doesn't fit all. You've got to figure out what that auditor needs, because as everybody's mentioned, they have a different background or skill level that got them to this point. So did they need more health and safety? Did they need more interview skills? What were they missing? So the flexibility in a very personalized approach. What works in China isn't India, it isn't South America, like it's different. And so we let our regional managers figure out what their teams need. But for those that are trying to pass the test and struggling, I missed questions and went back and said, why did I miss this? And because it was in the initial phases, I could get that feedback at that level because we were working on creating the test, and the feedback was, what were you thinking when you answered this question? And I said, well, I was at this audit once, and that's what I was thinking. And the feedback was, this isn't an audit, Greg, this is a test. And we've tried to readjust the mindset, because it happened to me, of our auditors that are getting stuck. It's a test, it's not an audit. You're taking a test, we're trying to see if you have the skills. So a huge hint to everybody that's trying to take the test. There's findings at this example. It's not gonna be a factory with no findings. I can't test you on 0. And so when you take the test, you are looking for those soft skills. Was there harassment, abuse, discrimination? Were there recruiting fees? Is there forced labor, right? Human trafficking indicators. And so one of those things is gonna be in your test, big hint. And so that's the challenge is, you know, if you need to think differently, then think differently. We had some conversations this week. It was great to hear Rajan talking about, what was the word you used, on explaining their mind, uncluttering their mind? Is that what you said, Rajan?
Mindset
And that's a
shift,
great way to put it, because if you have somebody that has years of experience, then we get stuck in what we know, right? There's that phrase, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. My freshers that are right out of school are getting through the 3 tests faster than the people that have done this for a while. So unclutter your mind, relax, it's a test. We can't test you on something that isn't on the test. So there's going to be findings. It's not a clean factory, big hint. But it's doable. We probably have too many people passing the test. The test is probably too easy, right? The brands want to be able to find the problems, right? At some point, someone's going to be sitting here talking about ABSCA 5.0 and the different modules, and now the bar has gone up because the industry needed more. Everybody will be laughing at how simple the test was way back in 2022 and 2023, because things have changed. Everything's more transparent. And as it's more transparent, the client wants to know, where did my product come from? And how come you couldn't find it on the traceability part of our CSR assessment? And so, you know, this is a journey that is only beginning. Did we start with hard? Was that in one of the things that you said today, hard? Yeah, it's not supposed to be easy. If it was easy, we'd call it in, phone it in. Yeah, you don't use child labor, all good, have a nice day. It's supposed to be hard, that's what we're getting paid for. And so the test isn't supposed to be easy, but it's totally doable. I encourage everybody to take it, and then you'll say, why are these people not passing? Is that the wrong note to end it on?
No. Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you all really for being here today and helping us focus on how to build capacity and what the capacity challenges are in the profession today. And, you know, encouraging everybody to take the exam and to know what's on the exam is really great. So you didn't end on a bad note. We're good. And thank you all for, I hope that everyone here had participated in Slido too. We had some great questions. So thank you, and we're going to end our session and take an hour-and-a-half break. For our online participants, we'll be back on in 90 minutes. And everyone here, we're going to break for lunch. So please come and say hi to your ABSCA folks. And thank you so much to the panel. Thank you for joining in remotely, Arta and Rajan as well.
Welcome.
Okay, just really quick.